Hello everyone, I'm bringing a video today looking at a pair of British NBC Overboots. So this is part of the British Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Protective Suit. You obviously have the suit itself, the charcoal lined suit, and then rubber overboots, which are obviously designed to protect the actual combat boots, the regular footwear, from contamination. Now these would prove problematic in service, as far as I'm aware, right the way through the use of these. They do cause issues in terms of mobility and so forth, but there are quite a wide range of these, all attempting to solve the issues which were found with them, which is that they're very flimsy and obviously by their nature they're designed to be disposable. And what you actually end up having is a design which is closer and closer to an actual boot in terms of the design of the sole and the tread and so forth, to actually try and improve a soldier's mobility whilst wearing them. What we have here are what I believe to be the first pattern of these. I'm not entirely sure on the designation, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the main part of the video. And as you'll see, they are literally designed to go over the boot and protect it. There's not much thought being put into soldiers' mobility and so forth. So we're going to have a look at these in some detail now. So here we have the two rather misshapen lumps of rubber we're going to talk about, and we'll have a look at these together first of all, and looking at the markings and so forth, and then I'll get rid of one of them. It's going to be easier to just look at an individual boot, an individual overboot, in terms of looking at the details of the design. Now these are very similar to the more common number 1 Mark II NBC Overboot. I'm positing these may be number 1 Mark I. I'm not entirely clear on that. I've never seen these in their primary packaging, with the label and so forth, to give the actual nomenclature. I've not seen any information regarding the nomenclature of this first pattern, of what would have believed to be the first pattern of NBC Overboots. So any information on that would be much appreciated. Anyone who was perhaps serving in the early 1970s and saw these and have experience with them. As I say, they are very similar to the follow-on design, the number 1 Mark II, what's believed to be the follow-on design, the number 1 Mark II, but they do have various detailed differences. And I'll be making a video in the not too distant future talking about the number 1 Mark II, and we'll compare it at that stage to this design, this preceding design, what's presumed to be the preceding design of NBC Overboots. So these are, as I say, just sort of misshapen pieces of rubber at this point, but we can see here we have markings on the sole of this one, BP 71. BP might be the manufacturer, possibly, but 71 I would presume to be the date. And then we do have a broad arrow and, well, believed to be inspection stamp there, as you can see. And then on this one we have BP 71 stamped differently, and then again we have this number and the broad arrow there stamped on the other side of the sole, if you can call it that. Remove one of these here, remove the one with the big chunky block stamp on the sole there. We'll have a look at this one individually. You'll notice there's sort of a lot of what appears to be fluff and flock stuck to this. I have tried cleaning these in the past and this seems to be stuck fast, so it may actually be the material reinforcement of the rubber, which we'll talk about in just a minute coming through. I'm not entirely sure on that. It doesn't want to seem to clear off, so that's why you've got this sort of speckled appearance of the rubber here. So the design consists of this oversized rubber, thin rubber overboot, and then a thicker material is used for the sole glued onto that, as you can see. And you can see the seam of the upper part of the boot there, where that's been glued together. I think it is just glued. You can see that there. You can see the inside part of that seam there where it's folded over, and you can see the shine there of where the glue bonds this together. So that's what this looks like, and with one laid out it's easier to see what we're trying to go for here in forming something of an overboot. This is actually laced up partially. I'll unlace it and I can show you how these are supposed to be laced according to the instructions for the number 1 Mark II. In form, in terms of the design of the sole, in having 4 eyelets around the outside and the upper part of the boot here, they are very, very similar. One of the ways they differ is they have no tread at all, as we saw when looking at the bottom of the sole. This is completely smooth, so moving around on anything other than sort of tarmac, so even wet grass, I would imagine this would be problematic, and certainly in mud you're going to have absolutely no traction whatsoever when wearing these. A major flaw of this particular design. Another detail difference is that the eyelets are metal, so these are actually what appear to be blackened or black painted brass. I think they are chemically blackened brass, as you can see there. And that would be changed later on. They would be just a reinforced section of the rubber. Another thing to note with this is that the rubber sole, you can see the texture here, this is a cloth reinforced rubber. as is the thinner material used to make the upper and the thinner material used to make the laces. Now on the later designs, the sole will be made of a thicker solid rubber without the cloth reinforcement, and again that's something we'll have a look at in the upcoming video. So these are designed somewhat to be a one size fits all, and because of that you adjust in the size by drawing in the sides and the front and back. And the way this is done, this is how these were laced when they came to me, with the lace sort of doubled through the front there, so I've left that. The laces should be laced through the outer eyelets like this. I think they cross actually, if I remember correctly, off the instructions. They cross the toe like that. The other one would come through like this. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference whether they cross or not over the front there. You would then twist them over one another in front of the ankle like that, and you can see how if these are pulled tight they begin to draw the sides and the top of the front and the sides of the sole in rather. This would then be looped around the back to the rear eyelet like this, and the other one the same, like that. Ooh, pulling that one out, and both there, and then loop back round the front of the ankle and tied off around the front. And that's how this would be laced up. Now obviously it's not very clear to see without a foot in the boot, or a boot in the boot rather, because it is an overboot, but you can see how you end up something there with both the heel, the toe and the two side parts drawn in around the foot. That's the idea of how these are worn. So this initial design, if that indeed is what it is, I believe it is, the first design of NBC Overboots, rather lacking in various features, particularly in not having a tread, and that's one of the first issues that would be remedied with the number 1 Mark II. That does have a tread pattern on the sole, as we'll see in that future video looking at it. So there it is. As I say, as far as I'm aware, this is the first pattern of British NBC Overboot. There we go, getting mixed up with the ends of the laces here. Just unlace this for when I come to put these away again. As I say, I will have these out for the next video and compare them directly to the number 1 Mark II. And then my intention would be to compare the number 1 Mark II to its successor and so forth, run through, and then maybe make one video looking at all of them together and consider the evolution of the design in one sort of timeline. And you'll see an example, an illustration of the lacing pattern for these. Well, I presume it was also used for these when we look at the number 1 Mark II, because that has a lacing pattern on the back of the instruction leaflet which comes with the boots in their primary packaging. So we'll have a look at that in the next part in this series, I guess. So anyway, that's a look at these. I'll say what I believe to be the first pattern of British NBC Overboots. They aren't a pair per se. They're obviously issued as a pair, but they aren't handed. They can be worn on the left or right foot. They aren't a handed pair. But that's a quick look at these, as I say, and we'll look at the number 1 Mark II, the successor to these, what I believe to be the successor to these, in the next part in the series. So I do hope you found it interesting looking at these. As I say, as far as I'm aware, these are the first issue version of the NBC Overboots. We'll probably have a look at the next pattern along in an upcoming video at some point in the not too distant future, and probably have a look at the other patterns as well issued during the Cold War, the various design improvements which were introduced to try and make these a bit more suitable for moving and fighting in, as well as providing protection to the regular footwear. So as I say, I do hope you found it interesting looking at this, and if you'd like to see the videos going forward, or you found this interesting, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you whenever I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below in the description. And as I always say, a massive thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated, as I always say. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down there in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.